I own a private cabin deep in the woods. It's a family retreat, not a rental property, and the gate at the entrance makes that very clear. Recently, however, my peace was shattered by none other than the infamous HOA Karen from the neighboring community. One afternoon, I noticed several cars lined up on the road outside my property. Confused, I went to check and saw HOA Karen in the middle of it all, clipboard in hand, acting like she was running some big event. When I asked what was going on, she smugly told me she had reserved my cabin for a party of over 100 guests. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. But no, Karen waved her clipboard and said she was the event coordinator for the 10 team too, and that my cabin was community property for gatherings. I calmly reminded her that my cabin was private property, not part of their HOA, but Karen, in classic fashion, rolled her eyes and barked that the guests would be arriving shortly, and she expected the gate to be open. That was the moment I decided she needed a reality check. I walked back up the road, shut the iron gate, and locked it tight. Within minutes, her guests began to arrive, dozens of cars lining the street. They all looked around in confusion when they realized they couldn't get in. Meanwhile, Karen stood red-faced at the gate, trying to explain why they couldn't access the property she'd booked. When people asked me what was happening, I politely told them the truth. This is my private cabin, not a rental, and it was never reserved. You could see the embarrassment spread across Karen's face as the guests began whispering and glaring at her. Some even got back in their cars and drove away. Karen tried to save face, saying I was being selfish and that the community deserves to enjoy the cabin. I pulled out my deed, showed the crowd the legal ownership papers, and made it clear she had no authority here. That was the end of her charade. By the time the last car left, Karen was standing alone outside the locked gate, humiliated in front of her own neighbors. She never apologized, of course, but she hasn't tried to reserve my cabin again. Sometimes the best way to deal with an entitled person is to let them embarrass themselves with their own lies. Asterisk.